So today, Sean O'Malley and Tim Welch had a podcast with Michael Bisping where they discussed multiple topics varying from Jake Paul versus Mike Perry to UFC 304, which is upcoming this weekend. Sean O'Malley also went into detail about his ostarine suspension. New details have come to light recently. A new article has been published supposedly clearing his name from the accusations. To give a brief history of O'Malley and USADA, essentially, O'Malley was first suspended in September of 2018 for an anti-doping violation. They didn't really come out and state what it was until the next year when he popped again. So he got a 6-month suspension in September of 2018 and was supposed to return in March of 2019. In June of 2019, he then popped again for trace amounts of ostarine, which is supposedly remnants of what he popped for in September of the previous year, and not a new violation, essentially. O'Malley's come out with information saying that ostarine can now be transferred through sweat, and that's how the trace amounts were found in his system, and that 3 people in his gym, including himself, all popped for ostarine when all 3 of them had not been doing it. Sean cited this website on Twitter in response to Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor replied to this clip of O'Malley talking about the new ostarine information and how it can be transferred through sweat. McGregor just replied with a laughing emoji on Twitter, in which Sean in the comments went and replied with just the link to the article. It was a PubMed article, a government website in the US, so fairly reputable. It doesn't show too many case studies. It is just one about a shared knee band in which one person tested for ostarine and was definitely on ostarine, and then they found trace amounts in someone else who shared the knee band. Now, when it comes to trace amounts, I'm sure Sean could have justified this with just the June 2019 violation. However, if he got it from sweat, if Sean popped for ostarine originally in September of 2018 and it was from sweat, it would have been a trace amount, correct? It wouldn't have been a full dose of ostarine or however much is needed. Which leads me to think, so yeah, sure, we can excuse him for that. Trace amount, got it from sweat. Was it then a trace amount again in June? And if so, how was it still in his system if it was just a trace amount in September of 2018 and barely enough, right? Like it's only just slightly detectable to pop as a violation. It doesn't seem to have any effect on him with the amount that was in his body. If he's claiming that, how was there still some left 9 months later? Unless he was rolling with the same person twice and got ostarine in him twice from the same person or in the same situation through sweat. The issue is with me, if that was the case, this would be happening to fighters all the time, and I don't think O'Malley is unlucky enough for that to happen twice, for him to be popping for ostarine twice because of sweat. That's just my question, right? So if it was a trace amount in the original violation, how was it still in his system 9 months later down the line when it was supposedly another trace amount? Either he had a lot in his system the first time, which I don't think USADA ever specified on the internet. I couldn't find any information about how much was in his system the first violation, just that it was. He either contracted it twice the same way via sweat, and it was just trace amounts both times, which I don't find likely considering lots of other fighters would have the same issue. 3 people in his gym had the same problem, including himself. That could just mean all 3 of them are doing it. I'm not saying that is the case, or all 3 of them rolled with the same person and got it that way. Now, I don't see why this wouldn't be happening in other gyms as well and to other fighters. It might be happening that we don't know about, and a whole bunch of fighters might come forward and their names might be cleared after this most recent study. Jeff Nowitzki, the guy who's the head of the doping and all the drug policies for the UFC, he actually messaged Sean the article and told him to check it out. So Listen, it does seem to have some credibility, and if so, this definitely clears Sean's name. I like Sean a lot. I hope it's true. I don't want him to be a cheater. However, I just don't see how, if it was, it just seems like he had a lot in his system in September and then popped again in June with trace amounts left over from the first violation, which is what the story was, right? That's how everyone sort of justified it. Listen, tainted supplement, he popped, and then the second time it was just trace amounts from the first violation. So he didn't cheat twice, he just cheated once. Well, not cheated, but did wrong once. But now if it can clear his name both times, I don't know, it's still, there's still a lot of research to be done, I think, and we need to know how much he popped for the first time compared to the second time to see if it was just from the one event, and also how much ostarine is being transferred when rolling, and if it can stay in your system for up to 9 months like that. Because that's another thing that would basically for sure clear Sean's name if we could find out how long ostarine would stay in the system transferred by sweat, not taken normally. But I don't know shit about steroids, to be honest. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not an expert. I'm just condensing and providing information that I found on the internet for you guys, from Sean himself, from the government website, and from my own research on Twitter. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, go do your own research, but it does seem like Sean might have his name cleared here. But yeah, all around interesting. I wonder how many other fighters are going to come forward with this sort of excuse or explanation. But yeah, the rest of the podcast was actually really good as well. It was with Michael Bisping. I don't like Michael Bisping by himself on his podcast. Listen, when I first started watching the UFC, Michael Bisping was my favorite fighter. I loved his story with the one eye, coming back and getting his redemption against Luke Rockhold and winning the championship. I think he just had a great story. I always used him on UFC 4 with the camo shorts. It's good fun. I do like Michael Bisping. Over the last few years though, I have gotten a bit tired of listening to his takes. He does seem to be a lot more of a company man and doesn't always tell things how they are. He definitely stays on the fence a lot more, which I guess it's fair for him to do, and I like Michael Bisping. Lots of respect to him. They did discuss UFC 304. They went into quite a lot of detail about the fights. However, Michael Bisping could not predict any fights because he's going to be commentating on that card. They also discussed Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. Basically, all three of them mutually agreed that it turned out exactly how everyone expected, even though everyone in MMA was backing Mike Perry, hoping that he could just find that one shot. They also agreed that Jake Paul looked huge in the ring versus Mike Perry, and that Perry definitely sort of backed off after feeling Paul's power after the first couple knockdowns, and could see the fight just tilting heavier and heavier towards Jake's way. They also said that no real boxer looks at Jake Paul as a threat, and that there's not really any professional boxer in Jake's weight class right now that they could see Jake beating. Jake has fought a lot of older MMA fighters and some untested boxers, and when he fought a real boxer in Tommy Fury, he got fraud checked. Listen, I'm not here to hate on Jake Paul. He does very good at promoting. I don't box. I can't criticize his boxing skills. His promotion skills are very good. The way he can draw attention to a fight when we know it's not going to be a high quality fight, it's pretty impressive. He's good at picking names, and he's good at building noise around a fight. That being said, the call out of Alex Pereira, we know that fight's never going to happen. We know Dana's not going to go let Alex fight Jake Paul. Jake did that so he could get the credit for wanting to fight Alex Pereira and saying that he's capable of doing it and believing in himself without actually having to face the music and fight Alex Pereira, because he knows that fight's never going to happen. Just getting as much attention as possible. He knew that would stir up the MMA community, which he's been focusing on doing because he knows Dana hates him. Michael Bisping said that if he wants respect from the fighting community, not casual people who see Jake Paul as a boxer and see that he's doing well, just watch him beat up MMA guys without really knowing how MMA skills transfer over to boxing really poorly, and that if he wants respect, he's got to fight someone where he's not a minus 500 favorite in the fight. He's got to fight someone who's a challenge. He's got to be an underdog for once. He's got to fight a real boxer. But the issue with that is a real boxer might not always draw in as much attention and promotion, which is what Jake Paul chases. He wants all that. He wants the noise. He wants the stir. He wants the numbers on socials. I think Jake's doing the right thing now. He's still got to develop. I reckon he's got to keep working on his skills, give it a few more years, keep beating MMA fighters, do whatever you need to do, Jake, because you're promoting well, you're making money, and listen, you're never going to beat the best of the best boxers. It's too late for you. It's too late. Like, you're not going to be up there. But keep doing these big fights. It gets the MMA community talking about it, it gets the boxing community talking about it, and just keep putting them on when there's a WMMA main event, right? Keep putting your boxing fights on those days because people are going to want to watch an entertaining fight, or at least have something to talk about on weekends. So keep doing your can crusher fights, put them on WMMA fight nights or weekends where the UFC is not on, because you're never going to be able to compete with the UFC at this rate. Yeah, they also discussed multiple fights at 304. What was most surprising to me was Tim Welch's take on Paddy versus Bobby Green. I'm not going to call him King Green, you're Bobby. They said that Paddy's main focus during fight camp isn't improving or tuning his style to his opponent. It's just about making weight and cutting all that weight that he puts on outside of camp. And that when he's outside of camp, he's not really improving because he's letting himself go so much. I have to agree with him on that. It does make a lot of sense, and everyone sort of unanimously picked Bobby Green to win, except Bisping because he couldn't really, but he basically presented arguments against Paddy winning without having to say that he thought Bobby was going to win. I still think Paddy can do it. I think Bobby's pretty overrated, and his hands down fighting style, I think Paddy's wild. I reckon Paddy could chin him and get his back. So with Paddy still being on his first contract and being low paid, O'Malley was surprised by that and how he hadn't renegotiated considering how big of a star he is. But Bisping mentioned that he used to get paid 12 and 12, then he got paid 18 and 18, then 24 and 24. But Dana would come and, if he won, just give him like a $250K check after the fight behind closed doors. So fighters are definitely being looked after more than we know, especially the favourites, the ones who can talk. I'm sure these fighters are getting paid and are getting paid a lot more than we know. They just don't want to disclose it to the public in case it closes them off from getting paid like this in the future. The UFC definitely has favourites. This confirms it for sure. But yeah, I thought that was interesting how Paddy might just be sort of slowing down because he's getting taken care of by the UFC so well. There's no way he wouldn't have not renegotiated his contract if he wasn't being paid good. So, I don't know, maybe he'll lose against Bobby Green and start to take MMA a bit more seriously after that, but I hope that doesn't have to happen. I hope Paddy can just start taking it more seriously. He looks to be in shape early. His face is very thin already. He's doing well. I hope he's stayed more in shape this camp and is taking it a lot more serious, because he needs to be taking it more serious against a fighter like Bobby Green, because he will get knocked out if not. But yeah, thank you guys for watching again. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys again shortly.